Sometimes, when you rail fan busy places like Galesburg or the transcon, you end up with far too many catches for one video. And other times, you catch something by pure happenstance that would just throw a wrench in the system if you tried to work it in somewhere. So rather than let all these catches go unseen, why not give them a video of their own? Today, we'll be checking out all the surplus footage and unexpected catches that either didn't fit in a video, would have made it too long, or were simply forgotten about. Get ready for heritage units, Dash 8s, fallen flags, and a whole lot more. Our first surplus catch comes from Galesburg, where we see a couple B40-8Ws doing some switching at the north end of the yard. The engine with the SD60 in tow is certainly a local freight, but as for 518, I think it's just on yard duty today. Because B40-8Ws have a relatively short frame and are among the most powerful 4-axle locomotives ever made, you'd think they'd be well suited for yard duty. However, 4,000 horses being pumped into just 4 axles can cause excessive wheel slip, and their turbo is not gear driven like an EMD's, so it has to spool up quite a bit before it starts delivering power, which is what is needed for efficient switching. B40-8Ws were designed for high-speed long-haul trains, not slow yard work. While they can get the job done, EMDs are just better suited for it. Before leaving, I couldn't help but snag this awesome photo. It's like the 90s never ended. A couple months earlier, we see Amtrak's one and only Phase 4 Heritage unit. But strangely, this is not the original. Number 184 was actually the first Phase 4 Heritage locomotive, but it was repainted into Phase 5, simply because it needed new paint. Interestingly, this ain't the first time Amtrak has moved heritage schemes from one engine to another. A while ago, they moved the Phase 2 paint job from 66 to 130, and the Phase 1 paint job from 156 to 161. During Galesburg's railroad days at Peck Park, we catch a Chicago-bound intermodal on the transcon, with a sizable power move on the head end. While the train itself ain't too impressive, what's happening around it is, because just a few feet away on the Barstow sub, Gandy dancers are working to replace damaged guard wires. And if you look closely, you'll notice there's a worker underneath the bridge, just a few feet away from a fully laden freight train. That man better be getting paid well, because he dang near has nowhere to go if something goes wrong. Before leaving Peck Park, we see one of the last war bonnets ever made leading an intermodal, and Santa Fe 643, which we caught about 6 months ago leading a northbound mixed freight across Oklahoma. We also catch a Canadian National SD70M-2 with quite a unique paint job on the cab. I'm not sure how 8818 ended up like this. It wasn't involved in a wreck, so my guess is that it had bad decals that simply peeled off over time. After that, we move west to Burlington, Iowa, in an attempt to catch this local freight in its Superfleet-8 in action. Unfortunately, 554 and its SD60M Duo ain't scheduled to run this evening. However, its sister train was. The mixed freight this Dash 8's leading is either LCHI 336 or MBUR EDY, and it's on its way to Eddyville, Iowa. Unfortunately, these old workhorses are becoming increasingly rare on BNSF, as only 10 to 15 of them remain on the roster. While a few have recently been rebuilt, the majority of these locomotives are still nearly all original, with roughly 3 engines continuing to wear their ATSF Superfleet colors. Dash 8s likely don't have much longer with BNSF. They've already outlived their intended service life of about 30 years. They're mediocre when it comes to yard service, and critical parts are becoming increasingly difficult to find when repairs are needed. The good news is that one has been preserved at RRHMA, and many more haul freight for short lines. As the train approached the next grade crossing, a group of highly ignorant people demonstrated what you should never do in the presence of an oncoming train. It should go without saying, this is flat out stupid, and is a wonderful way to get yourself maimed or killed. Thank goodness the trains go slow through Burlington, because this could have ended much worse. Just let this impulsive group of people serve as a reminder to always use your common sense. Next up, we head over to Monmouth, Illinois, where we see some wacky maintenance-away vehicles. This one's used for spreading ballast. Those black trapezoidal blades on the side fold out so the machine can reshape the roadbed, or clean off the tops of railroad ties for tie adjusters, which looks something like this. Using large metal fingers, this machine can adjust and replace railroad ties by simply sliding them about under the rails. And as for that Dr. Seuss-looking contraption it's towing behind it, I have no clue what that does, but if you do, please let us know in the comments. Continuing our trek eastward, we find ourselves in Cameron, Illinois, where the Chillicothe sub of the Southern Transcon crosses the Ottumwa sub, which feeds directly into the Galesburg yard just a few miles east. Our first catch here is a grainer, with the 25th anniversary engine in the lead. Out of roughly 8,000 locomotives on BNSF's roster, only 10 wear this special livery, and they're all Gevos. Next up was a westbound intermodal, with one of UP's big ol' AC6000s third in the lash-up. These AC60s were only used by UP and CSX, and they're a prime example of bigger isn't always better. Due to their insane horsepower, these locomotives would routinely damage rail cars and tracks. Because of this, many engines were downgraded to 4,400 horsepower, the standard amount for a road engine. CSX has since retired their fleet of AC60s, but as we just saw, UP is still holding on to a few, and maintaining their appearance, which is always nice to see. Just a few miles down the road, we find ourselves back in Galesburg, where we catch an impressive lash-up on a priority intermodal. CPKC is 3 months old at this point, and we're still seeing completely unpatched power. Maybe the company's chosen to keep CP and KCS as paper railroads, just like CN has done with all their acquisitions. Hopefully this is the case, so we can continue to see these pieces of railroad in history for decades to come. But if not, Get out there and enjoy all this pristine motive power while you still can. And finally, we catch a northbound crude oil train south of Tuscola, Illinois, with one of Canadian National's iconic 100th anniversary engines in the lead. Thanks for watching. If y'all enjoyed this video, consider checking out some other ones of mine. Also, maybe pass yourself by the merch shop. Anyways, till next time.